H.O.A. president removed my boundary marker, so I filed the survey record and the city issued a compliance order. The orange stake wasn't just a piece of plastic and wood, it was a legal declaration. Yet, as I pulled into my driveway on a Tuesday afternoon, I watched Sandra Vickers, the president of the Oak Creek Estates Homeowners Association, kick it loose with the heel of her designer pump and toss it into the drainage ditch. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy adjusting her blazer and looking satisfied with the newly uninterrupted view of the common area grass that she insisted belonged to the HOA. By the time I put the truck in park, she was already marking a clipboard, likely checking off a violation she had just manufactured. My name is Marcus Thorne. I'm a licensed land surveyor with 22 years of experience in municipal planning and boundary litigation. I spend my days resolving disputes for the county, ensuring that property lines are respected down to the fraction of an inch. I moved into Oak Creek for the quiet, not for the drama, but I knew exactly what Sandra was doing. She wanted to extend the community walking path across the corner of my lot to avoid a rocky outcrop on the association's land. To do that, she had to pretend my property ended 4 feet earlier than it actually did. I stepped out of the truck, the door closing with a heavy thud. Sandra turned, offering a tight, rehearsed smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Marcus, I was just tidying up. We can't have unauthorized stakes cluttering the landscape. It's a violation of Section 4.2 regarding unapproved exterior structures." "That wasn't a structure, Sandra," I said, my voice leveled by years of dealing with difficult developers. "That was a certified boundary marker placed by a licensed crew this morning." Her smile didn't flicker. "In Oak Creek, the board determines the aesthetic standards of the perimeter. Tomorrow, the landscaping crew is coming to sod this area. If you interfere again, the fines will start at $500 a day." The official violation notice arrived via certified mail less than 48 hours later. It wasn't just a warning about the stake, it was a full-scale offensive. Sandra had drafted a notice of encroachment, claiming that my newly installed decorative stone edging, which sat exactly 2 inches inside my actual property line, was technically on HOA common ground. The following Tuesday, I attended the monthly HOA board meeting held in the community clubhouse. The room was packed with neighbors, most of whom were there to complain about the rising monthly dues. Sandra sat at the head of the mahogany table, flanked by Miller, the association's property manager. "Mr. Thorne," Sandra said, her voice projecting to the back of the room, "we've reviewed the community's original developer plot. Your stone border impedes the planned expansion of the north side walking trail. We require its removal by Friday, or the association will hire a contractor to do it at your expense." I remained seated, my hands folded. "Sandra, the developer plot you're looking at was a preliminary conceptual drawing from 1998. It doesn't account for the utility easement or the adjusted boundary recorded when the county widened the main road 3 years ago." Miller leaned forward, his face reddening. "The board's authority on aesthetic and boundary management is final under the bylaws, Marcus. We don't need a history lesson. We need that land cleared for the community's benefit." As I left the meeting, I saw my neighbor, Jim, a retired postal worker who had lived there since the beginning. He caught up to me in the parking lot. "She's already got the sod and the trail gravel staged behind the maintenance shed, Marcus. She isn't waiting for a compromise. She fully expects you to comply or go broke paying the fines." The next morning, I drove down to the county recorder's office. As a surveyor, I knew that while an HOA's bylaws are powerful, they don't override the municipal master plan. I spent 3 hours digging through microfiche and digital property records. I wasn't just looking for my deed, I was looking for the specific modification from 3 years ago when the county widened the perimeter road. I found it, amended Plat 402B. When the county took 6 feet for the new turning lane, they didn't just move the road, they shifted the entire utility easement and redrew the lot lines to ensure the setbacks remained legal. This meant the common area Sandra was so obsessed with had actually been absorbed into the public right-of-way and my private parcel during the land swap. I returned to the neighborhood to find a white pickup truck parked in front of my house. A man in a high-visibility vest was spray painting blue lines across my lawn. It was Kevin, a local grading contractor I'd worked with on several city projects. "Marcus," Kevin said, looking apologetic as he shook my hand. "Sandra Vickers hired us to cut the path through here tomorrow morning. She showed me a map from the HOA office saying this was community land. I told her it looked tight, but she signed the work order and said the board had cleared it." "Kevin, look at the utility box near the curb," I said, pointing to a weathered green metal housing. "If you dig here, you're hitting the main fiber optic trunk for the entire north subdivision. The HOA doesn't have an easement here anymore." For a moment, I felt a surge of frustration. The HO was moving faster than the paperwork. I showed Kevin my preliminary notes, but he shook his head. "Marcus, I like you, but I have a signed contract with the association. Unless a city inspector tells me otherwise, my crew starts at 7 a.m. I had 12 hours. I headed back to my office to print the one document Sandra hadn't bothered to check. At 6:45 a.m., the rumble of a skid steer loader echoed through the cul-de-sac. Sandra was already there, coffee in hand, pointing toward my stone border like a general directing an infantry charge. Kevin and his crew were unloading rolls of sod. "Morning, Marcus," Sandra called out, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. "Last chance to move the stones yourself before we bill you for the labor." I didn't move the stones. Instead, I handed a heavy manila envelope to the man standing next to me, a uniformed city code enforcement officer named Miller, relation to the property manager, whom I'd called the night before. "Here is what they didn't know," I said, looking directly at Sandra. "When the county widened the road, they didn't just move the pavement. They vacated the old HOA easement and deeded this specific 10-foot strip to my parcel to maintain the legal setback requirements. This isn't just a boundary dispute, it's a protected utility corridor." The city officer pulled out a high-visibility G-Piece rover and a copy of amended Plat 402B. He walked to the center of the proposed path, his screen chirping as it locked on to the satellite coordinates. "Ma'am," the officer said, turning to Sandra, "this survey record is filed and certified. You are currently ordering a contractor to excavate on private property and within 3 feet of a high-pressure main. Do you have a city-approved encroachment permit for this trail?" Sandra's face went pale. "The HOA bylaws. The bylaws don't grant you the power to dig over municipal utilities on land you don't own," the officer interrupted. He turned to Kevin. "Shut it down. If a bucket hits the dirt here, I'm issuing a stop work order and a citation for $2,500. Kevin didn't hesitate. He started cranking the tie-down straps back over his equipment. Sandra stood frozen, her clipboard trembling, as the authority she thought she held evaporated in the face of a single recorded document. The fallout was swift and remarkably quiet. Within 48 hours, the HOA board held an emergency executive session. When the other members saw the recorded amended Plat 402B and the potential liability of digging near a fiber optic trunk without a permit, the tone shifted from enforcement to damage control. Sandra was stripped of her signing authority for community projects, and by the end of the month, she had stepped down from the board entirely, citing personal reasons. The orange stakes stayed exactly where I put them. The stone border remained untouched. In fact, the association had to pay Kevin a mobilization fee for the canceled work, a cost that appeared on the quarterly budget under administrative oversight errors. My neighbors, who had watched the drama unfold from their porch swings, began asking me for copies of their own property surveys. They realized that the authority they had feared was really just a lack of verified information. I'm still the same Marcus Thorne. I still drive my truck, I still check my mailbox, and I still value the quiet of the suburbs. But now, when people walk past my lot, they stay on the sidewalk. They know that while the HOA has its rules, the recorded deed has the final word. Would you have handled it differently?